Welcome back, all you lovely goblins and ghouls of the internet. My name is Hanya, your demonic cinephile, and we are back with episode 5 of Interview with the Vampire. A vile hunger for your hammering heart. Okay, so the episode starts off with the interview with Daniel going over one of Claudia's journals. What he basically stumbles upon is a kill list. A number of people she has taken in their last words. Not now, guard your heart, take me, not my dog. I thought it would be summer. And he is just outright appalled, disgusted, while Louis is just having Rashid as a nice little snack. And you can kind of see Rashid, the look on his face, how he is finding it hilarious to a point, how Daniel is so uncomfortable with the murders committed from Claudia, and how comfortable he's getting from watching Louis drink from Rashid, drink from him. Rashid brings up that this interview and the book that will spawn from it is Louis' suicide note. Because once all the other vampires get a hand of the book, they're more likely going to head to Dubai and string them up, rip them apart, and burn them. Which is kind of fun because in the original novel, Anne did not come up with her world yet. So this is something more that happened in the Vampire Lestat when Lestat put on his big concert and he reads his novel and his albums. People were heading for him. They wanted to rip him apart and kill him. But we never hear that coming about to Louis. I don't think it's ever said in the novels that Louis had other vampires coming for him after Daniel created the first book. We cut back to the past, which I think was still stated to be 1923, and we see Louis. He thinks Claudia is on a hunger strike. He's breaking the wings of pigeons to get her to come out and snack. And this is where we get the more concerning aspects of Louis and Lestat's relationship. And I also want to say it's almost borderline character assassination for Lestat. Because, yes, he's abusive, he's controlling, he's possessive, but he did care for Claudia. Like, he loved Claudia. Like he didn't just, oh, she's just here for Louis. No, he took her out. He enjoyed spending time with her. And now he's acting like she is such a burden. They go into her room, tear apart her coffin. They start, well, not Louis, but Lestat goes through her diaries. And we get this part where she's basically explaining that she may have or try to have sex, and the skin, her virginity, it grew back. Which, yes, would happen in the Anne Rice books. It feels a little bit more akin to True Blood with Jessica. I guess this is also just the aspect of aging Claudia's character up such a big degree. And when Claudia comes back, full on interrogation mode of Lestat, she goes to open up her coffin. Lestat just pops out like, surprise! Puts her against the wall like, yeah, so we've been reading your diary and you've killed how many people? And you did not bring them back to the incinerator? But I want to say, I wonder what else was said in the diaries, because, of course, Lestat being the more harsher parent, Claudia turns to Lou and asks for help. Like, you're just gonna do this to me? And Lestat's like, oh, I'm sorry. I read some passages out loud. You had some very harsh words for both your guardians. I am kind of wondering, what did Claudia say about Louis? And then we get this awesome little quick sequence where we see a bunch of workers, or as dark rainy night is pouring, the rain is just pouring down on everybody, and one of the workers, he sees the bodies, and you can kind of look at the body, and you see like Claudia didn't just like bit his neck, but she kind of like ripped it almost all the way off. Like, oh, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna do it right there. They do it right there. And imagine a whole chunk of my neck is just gone. It's just gone. I mean, it's kind of weird, kind of cut though, because we cut to a couple entering a secret bar because prohibition. Then you see Louis and Lestat there, and they're talking to Tom something, forgot the last name. One of Louis' old partners when he still ran the brothel. How is he not weirded out by Louis and Lestat? It's almost been 20 years since Louis became a vampire. He hasn't aged. Lestat hasn't aged. You think he'd be looking at them like more weirded out, but he's just prodding along like it's just business. But we learned through the dialogue that Claudia has committed about 56 kills, and she done some she did some weird true serial killer things, like taking body parts, the toe here, a finger there, a breast. Not both, just one. But as the conversation goes on, Tom more or less states that Louis and Lestat put it together that out of a favor for the new chief of police, he brought them there so they can enter their home and search around. And we get more example of Lestat's time-stopping powers. He tells Louis to go to the chief of police, and Lestat stares at Tom, and we see Tom gets the dead zombie eyes and becomes completely still. And you pay attention in the background, you can see the same thing happening to the police chief. And it doesn't happen for a minute, but eventually all the sound dies down and everybody is frozen. Now, I don't understand, why does Lestat have this power? I did not read all the books, but I do know that this is a power that does not exist in the novels. And don't try to tell me he's not stopping time. He is stopping time. Because in the earlier 2 episodes ago, when he made all those soldiers leave their house, he had to put his hand to his head, he had to concentrate, and it actually caused him pain. He had to bleed. It took a lot of strength to do that. So for him to control what I'm going to assume is at least 200 people, he would be passed out from the amount of power he would have to use. Also, the soldiers, when he controlled them, they didn't get the zombie eyes. And it's not just the people stop moving, it's the music stops, everything is frozen in place. So I hope this power gets explained. I hope, and not really explained, just like, I don't know why they gave this power to him. Of all the other unique powers they could come up with, why time stopping? Where Louis and Lestat get back to their home and they find a bunch of police going through their house. And Claudia is blackout drunk, not blackout, she's like drunk, super tipsy from someone she just drank. Claudia is hiding the body parts of her victims, and just goes to show how many people she has killed. And it kind of ends with a nice little funny scene where one of the officers breaks down her door. She's like, holds up the bed. She's like, "Get me out! Get out of here! I'm changing." But when that scene goes on, it is a little bit disturbing because you can hear the moans, the dying moans of the man she just recently killed, who's tied up in her closet. Like, it's very subtle, but once you hear it, you can't hear it. And you get a sense of this poor guy who probably did nothing wrong. It's just slowly dying as all this madness comes about, and he can't cry for help. Like, the police are right there, but he can't do nothing to say, "Help me, please help me, I'm going to die." As the interrogation ends, not interrogation, as the search ends, as the search ends, the cop is going to put a fine against Louis and Lestat for having a bunch of illegal alcohol, which, yes, again, the vampires can drink and eat in this version. But he also mentions that he tells them that they should get a second bed upstairs to hide better, that they are committing a sin against nature, and if they're convicted, they can be sent to jail. Which I guess is true. Back then, it was illegal to be gay, but this is like the first time it ever came up, and as far as I can tell, it does not go anywhere mentioning that. I mean, yes, it's a good reference to know about the time period that we are taking place in, but for story-wise, for that to come up and not to come back, it feels kind of weird. That you could cut that part out and save about half a minute of the episode for something else. And this part of the episode was inspired by the section of the book where Claudia murdered maids that worked for Louis and Lestat, a mother and a daughter. In the novel, nothing comes of it. They manage to get rid of the bodies before any trouble comes about. In the film version, they replace this with an older woman that Claudia admired and wanted to be like. So in here, they do mention a maid when missing. It's never clarified if Claudia killed her, but I guess it's more likely assumed, so there you go. Yeah, so it's kind of like a what if that, yeah, we didn't get rid of the bodies in time, and all this police now know about us. They don't know we did anything, but they suspect. They suspect that we are involved somehow, or they just don't like us because of the liquor and that we're gay. And we get this sprawling shot of all of the body's parts that Claudia collected with the dead man at the center of the table, asking her, like, yeah, you thought this was smart? How do you think it was going to go? And Claudia drops in with this amazing, almost monologue about who am I to love? Who is my Louis? Who is my Lestat? Who am I get to be with? What? Perverts who only want little girls? Or little boys? Then 40 years from now, still just little boys? And yeah, it was a nice little heartful thing, and does this perfectly explain the trauma for Claudia, that she will have a hard time finding a partner or anyone she really wants to pursue romantically, because most people are just going to look at her and assume she is a kid. She can only be with younger boys and hope they still like her when they find out the truth and they get older, or she turns them. Speaking of the turning, though, Claudia mentions she tried to turn someone. No, she mentions at least 3 or 4 people that she tried to turn into a vampire to her companion. But it's weird because in the novel, Claudia is physically 5 years old. So no matter how older her mind and spirit gets, she is still 5. So you can understand why Claudia in the book can't turn people. Her body does not have enough blood to carry the vampire spirit or power into another. But in the show, though, Claudia is, well, she's not grown. Her body's 14, but she is big enough. She has a lot of blood in her. So why can't Claudia in the show turn somebody? Like, it'd be better explained if she took too much blood, or she didn't give enough. But she said she gave a lot of blood. So why can't this version of Claudia turn? I mean, from what we watched when Lestat turned Louis and her, he didn't give that much blood. Well, at least it didn't seem like it. This sparks a fight within the family, where Claudia reveals that Lestat has continued his affair with the singer, Antoinette. And we're not told how long this has been going on, but I'm guessing either he never stopped the affair and just did it whenever Louis and Claudia were by themselves, or Louis' lack of attention to him during Claudia's months of grief pulled Lestat back to her. We're never exactly told that, but I'm guessing with how they're making Lestat, I'm guessing it never ended. And speaking of Lestat, we get more little things about Lestat where he starts talking about other vampires, that Claudia wants to find other vampires, and Lestat's like, oh, you want to find other vampires? Well, guess what? They're going to be cruel and vicious. They're going to break you because you are a little bird and a mistake. Why is Lestat already considering Claudia a mistake? Like, once again, there's no real build up to this personality change to him from stern and loving father to this abusive asshole. Lestat had these characteristics in earlier episodes, but he never treated Louis like this. It was always fun. It was always taunting. It was yelling. But Lestat is openly assaulting Claudia and putting his hands on her. Once again, he's not hitting her, but him gripping her chin to look at her eyes was definitely a threatful manner. The end result of the argument goes with Claudia leaving the house, leaving the family for 7 whole years. Now, I've criticized the show in almost every episode for how they decided to skip time in the future, but I will say I really did like this one because it shows the rot. It much more shows the rot of Louis and Lestat's relationship, their life, because with every single cut we get through the 7-year not really a montage but sequence. You can see their house getting more and more junky, more dirty, more nasty, with even Louis stating that, because Claudia basically called him Lestat's housewife, and Louis like, well, I rejected my duties that she so accused me of. So I'm guessing we can assume that Louis did most of the homework. But understand why Lestat is going before it? I mean, yes, they're bunkering down because of the prohibition, because the police are looking at them, but why doesn't Lestat hire a maid? It seems there's nothing he can do. As far as we can tell, they have not run out of money. We also get during this little segment, we have a nice little, well, nice is not the good word to use, but we get to see Louis and Lestat's relationship, their toxicity towards each other, with them getting into a little fight with Lestat wanting to go out to a party or to play, and Louis just mocks him, like Louis is getting a kick out of hurting Lestat and mocking his sense of self. What do you say? Oh yeah, you read the first 10 pages of a book and pass yourself off as cultured. And this was more akin to their relationship in the book, with Lestat and his constant gaslighting, him never taking anything seriously, and Louis overdramatic. He had a right to be overdramatic, but yeah, overdramaticism and his air of superiority, thinking that he was a better vampire, a better person than Lestat. And you can see their personalities clashing in such a ugly and nasty way. And as this goes on, we can see this further with Lestat leaving Louis to sulk into his depression over Claudia. Lestat just leaves the house, he goes off on his own. We even see him getting ready to go out with Antoinette to continue the affair, which earlier in the episode he promised he would kill her. Lestat is trying to get Louis to pay attention to him, but all Louis can do is worry about Claudia. I mean, of course he has to worry, that's his kid, that's his daughter, he loves her. But Lestat's like, I'm right here, a full-grown man with all the right appendages. No, I'm just going to keep ignoring me? Fine, I'll go. And that was a nice way, because yes, it's still Lestat being his bratty self, but it's also a nice little showing him trying to get Louis out of his funk, even though it's probably not the right way to go about it. Then we get to the most interesting and dark part of the episode. While Claudia, on her 7th year away from home, she stops at various colleges to read and learn about other societies, to read and learn about vampires and other vampire-like creatures. Walking out of a college library, she is hassled by, I'm assuming because of the letter jack, who's some frat boy. Before Claudia can really do anything, mostly because she has a bunch of witnesses around, she can't really kill him. Someone rolls up to her rescue, and is a new vampire. This character is referred to as Bruce. Well, Bruce and Claudia, well, we don't really see it, but they take the jog asshole out into the woods and kill him. If it looks like it, they threw his body into a fire, and Claudia's wearing his jacket. We get a little intel on Bruce that he was a factory worker who moved overseas for a time before being turned. He faked his own death and came back in his own coffin. Claudia gives him the nickname Killer. Now, in the opening scene for Queen of the Damned, Killer was in one of the many early segments of Queen of the Damned, the novel. Killer was a biker vampire. He led a gang of he led a vamp gang, a vampire biker gang. So it's kind of interesting to see them building the world right now. So I'm assuming Killer is going to make an appearance whenever they get to Queen of the Damned. And while it seems like it's like a nice little meet off between the two, Killer gets kind of creepy when he pulls out a book about etiquette and tries to get Claudia to read it. He tries to get a little close to her, and when she runs off and rejects him, he breaks her when he snaps one of her legs. Something horrible is about to happen, but we cut to the interview where Daniel's looking through the diary and 4 pages have been torn out. And we got, I love this, love this. Louis keeps saying, I will not have her exploited. Daniel's like, I need to read it. I will not have her exploited. You do not let me read this. This takes into question everything you have told me up to this point. And he's like, something bad happened. That's all you need to know. And that was and I like this because Daniel is grilling Louis. He's not taking any of his, oh, I'm old or vampire superiority thing. He wants the information. He needs it. And Louis is like, I'm not going to let you do this to my daughter. Oh, it's going to happen. You want me to release this book? It's going to happen. This is what happens when you release something to the public. The public has it. The public can do whatever they want with it. I mean, you might eventually see a bunch of sexy Claudia Halloween outfits in the future. Because it's true, once you release something to the public owns it to a point of view. And they will interpret a story, a person, a character, an event, however they want to connect it to themselves or to spin it into a new tale. Kind of like what they did to Anne Rice's books for the show. For better or for worse, I think it's better. This is still a good show despite all the changes. It's a good adaptation. Oh, still need to see it from there. Well, but we get this very creepy and very kind of violent. Louis starts using his telekinesis, which I guess we just confirmed that Louis does have telekinesis in the modern time. He uses it to violently shake Daniel's hand, like he's messing with his Parkinson's, like he's making it, like he's aggravating it. And when Louis stops, when Rashid comes to put a hand on his shoulder to calm him down, and then Daniel slaps him. But yeah, that is scary. Like, it's not just like vampire scary, but it's like real scary, like medical scary, that your body is just turning against you, like you have no control. And then we get to Louis getting a call from his sister. They meet out together to one of the graveyards, to Paul's tombstone. But she shows Louis the tombstone, and she's added his name to it. And we can confirm now that the timeline in the past is in the 1930s. She and her family got a opportunity in another state, and they're leaving. She doesn't want his money. She just wants to go. She does not recognize him. She does not recognize her Louis. As far as she can tell, her brother died a long time ago. And she leaves. She leaves, and this is Louis' last human connection. He breaks. He sulks. And it was a good scene, because I've made complaints about the handling of Louis' family as characters, that we did not see enough of them. And, you know, that's kind of is the point, to show to the audience that how much Louis is not spending time with them, not how much he is ignoring them for his new family. But at the same time, we don't really get to know them. Which I understand this is not their story. Louis probably wouldn't know anything else about their lives. But it's still, I don't know, it's like these characters were just like quick mentions in the novel, and you expanded their roles, but still really didn't do that much with them. I guess I can say. I guess what I'm trying to say. And I wouldn't be saying this if the characters were bad or the actors were bad. No, I like the characters and I like the performances that are given. That's why I want to see more of them. Claudia comes home. She arrives at their little flat, talking about how she has read all the old books about the old gods who drink blood, about the living dead in Europe. And that's where she wants to go. And Lestat mocks her. Oh, so you came here to stop for laundry before you fuck off completely. No, she's like, no, I came here to take Louis with me. Instead, still tries to gaslight them, saying that they do not know nothing, that the vampires over there are ruthless, that they're going to kill them, and they're still just blocking out. Lies, manipulations is all he does. And she's begging for Louis to come with her, to get out of Lestat, that his love is a box that he keeps you in. And most of this dialogue is contained with Claudia talking to Louis through their mental connection. And Lestat is just shouting, Louis! Like, are you really doing this? You're really going to do this? She leaves for 7 years, 1,000 nights of sulking, and the first sight of her, you're just going to up and leave me? Leave our home? Which, yeah, Lestat is being manipulative. He's being abusive. But he has a point where he's like, she left us. She left you. And you're just going to welcome her back in our lives so quickly? You're just going to leave this home that we built? I mean, yes, it's a home of lies, it's a home of cruelty, but it is still their home to an extent. A home that they did have good times in. And this is where Claudia says this line: "Come with me, and let's be vampires worthy of your love." Now, I don't really know sure how this line is supposed to be taken. If it's directed to Louis, Louis already loves her. He loves her. He doesn't love himself. Louis has a lot of issues with himself, so she wants him to express love to himself, to care about himself, or is it being told to Lestat, where she wants to take the family back but build it better, to be strong vampires that can be worthy of love, not just Lestat's love, because his love is kind of toxic, but his love in general. Now, I'm not really sure, but maybe I'm being stupid, but this leads with Lestat. This scene. This leads to Lestat fighting Louis. And it's this great fight, like an awesome, epic vampire fight we haven't had in a good long time, but we're never really shown the fight. We see quick glimpses. We see Lestat and Louis disappearing, flying across the room, things being broken, walls being shattered. But it's all focused on Claudia, because the action isn't important. It's how Claudia is seeing it. In the whole fight, it's framed as a little kid, or probably even a little kid, but just a child in general, watching their parents fight, watching the nasty words turn to fist and bruises and blood. Louis is calling to Claudia in her head, telling her that it's all right. It's all right. We stop. We calm down. Only for the wall beside her to explode, and Lestat flings Louis outside, and he has him. He's grabbing him not really by the throat, but he has his nails digged into under his jaw, and he's carrying him by that. And Lestat is saying, "For years I've held back my nature, my temper. I never once put a hand on you." Which, okay, so Lestat was always kind of like this. I'm guessing in the show he had his temper. He had bouts of moments where he wanted to inflict violence on Louis and Claudia, but he just never did. It's not very much out of character for the show, but I'll get to that in a second. It does conclude with this awesome shot. Like this, the cinematography is like if it wasn't this dark subject matter, it'd be so beautiful. Well, it's beautiful, but this Claudia starts saying, "You don't want him, you want me." And Lestat takes a drink out of Louis, and it just states, "It was never you," to Claudia, before he flies off again. But not like in episode 1 where it's just like a foot off the ground. Like he takes Louis like almost above the clouds. Like they are like several miles into the air. And Lestat is begging Louis to just tell him he doesn't love him. "I am never ever going to love you. It will save me a great bit of deal." And this was going back to something I said in one of my earlier videos, that we never do hear Louis say those words. And of course, he's shown affection to Lestat. They dance, they drink, they have fun, they sleep with each other. They do everything a couple should do. But you never once hear the words of love. He never says the words "I love you." Well, in the earlier episodes, not every episode, but in the earlier ones, all Lestat could do was say those words, sing praises of love to Louis, but never Louis never did the same. And when Louis demands for Lestat to let him go, anything for you, he drops him. He falls down to the ground. He breaks. It looked like he broke all his arms, but like both his arms and legs. And you can just feel so bad for Louis and Claudia, as Claudia is down on the ground trying to see how bad he is. Oh, Lestat just and doing this sounding, Lestat just gently floats back to the ground, looking like some epic evil villain. The episode ends with a song by none other than Charlie Manson, and I like this because it's mentioned earlier in the episode where Louis is trying to explain to Daniel that Claudia is still kind of a girl, that she's technically only 18 when she did all these murders. And Daniel fires back with, yeah, and Charlie Manson was still a good singer, but he was still Charlie Manson. I think it's a good way to, it's to kind of go to the vampires, where the vampires are these, no, they're basically everyday people. They're a family, two fathers, their daughter, a musician, a businessman, a scholar, but at the end of the day, they are vampires. They are murderers. No matter how many good things they do, they spend almost every night taking another life to do it for mere food, while the other takes all the joy in being a part of the divine plan, a part of the nature of the ending of life. I do want to go mention to Lestat, where did this come from? I mean, yeah, it makes sense in the show, but we kind of see it, hints of it throughout the show. Lestat's abusive personality, but why to this extent? Why did it become this huge fight? This scene of spousal, spousal. I can't say the word, but you know what I'm trying to say. Abuse, because in the novel, it never got like that. Yes, Lestat and Louis were toxic to each other, their personalities, their words. There are times where they will quarrel, they will fight, yes, but it was never to this degree. Yeah, the fight happened, but then it stopped in the house, like it was something quick. Yes, it would still be. Yes, it would still be scary. It'd be horrible that Lestat is doing this. But if it if the scene were to stop when they crashed through the wall, and Lestat was to look down upon Louis and see what he'd done to him. If he looked at Claudia, he saw how scared she was, and then he just flew off, not taking Louis to hurt him more, but just to fly away. That would probably be more in character, to Lestat being so shocked that he could cause this much harm and pain to people that he loved. Yes, it would still be an awful scene. It would be, Lestat still have no excuse for his behavior, but I would I would prefer Lestat attacking Louis out of blind rage than stopping, more acceptable than him going out of his way to be extravagant and dropping him from the sky. That's why I say this almost feels like character assassination to a point, because Lestat would never do this to Louis in the book. Once again, I didn't read all the books. I stopped after The Body Thief. But from what I can tell, this is not something Lestat would ever do. Unless someone truly awful that harmed him or someone he cared about. My overall thoughts about the episode, it was great. Everyone was giving their 100% like every other episode. I love the design of the house, how we see it deteriorate into this hoarding mess. The fight scene, while traumatic, was wonderfully put together. The music always on point. My real con is with the portrayal of the characters. The portrayal of Lestat. This feels way out of character, even a tiny bit out of character for how they written him for the show. And one small detail that I also have a negative about is the human characters, that they don't really show them aging whatsoever. Like, no lighting, no makeup to show that Tom and Grace and Leve are 20 years older than what they were at the start of the show. No wigs, no gray hair, no bags. Like, it would be really cool. This is it doesn't have to be great makeup, just some makeup to show that they have age to an extent. And while this could be a great contrast to Louis and Lestat, who are perfectly the same. Well, that was that's a little rant on Interview with the Vampire, Episode 5, A Vile Hunger for Your Hammering Heart. Did you like the episode? Did you hate the episode? Please put down in the comments down below. What did you feel about Lestat's violent outburst? And if you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. I would very appreciate it. And we will continue this series. I'm trying to speed run through these episodes real quick. Alright, see you in the next video. Bye.